We want to welcome you to the second annual Few of the Many, sponsored by the County Executive, Stuart Pittman. Before we get started, I would ask that we take just a moment of silence. As many of you have read, our Mayor, Gavin Buckley's mother passed. So let's take a moment and hold him and his family in our prayers. Thank you. There are so many people who have contributed to making America better. Oftentimes, those names are names that people recognize. They're famous African Americans. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman. But what we want to demonstrate tonight is there are many, many, many individuals in local communities who are making history, who are the real pioneers who've made a difference. County Executive Pittman, when getting elected to office, one of the first programs he put together was this program, the Few of the Many. Last year it was held at the Arundel Center in a conference room, which was not large enough to accommodate people. So today we're having it here. I suspect next year we may have to find even a larger venue for it. There is a growing need for people to know history. When you look in a mirror reflects what it sees. When you look in history books, it should be like a mirror, reflecting all of its people. But we know, sadly, that when it comes to African Americans and people of color, that they're often missing. From the major events that have changed the nation to very small events that have made a difference. It's sad but true that even today we have one of the greatest scandals going on in history. When people look back at Watergate, they remember Richard Nixon, but few will be able to tell you the name of African American, just a security guard, who was the one that made it possible for the nation to be able to look at that moment in history. History has a way of moving very quickly. And it's important that we pause and recognize the men and women who made a difference. Men and women whose names we will never know, who just made a tremendous difference in the lives of people. Locally here in Anne Arundel County, there are names that every child who matriculates through Anne Arundel County Public Schools should know. Sadly, they don't. If you ask someone who Ernest T. Allen was, they don't know. You ask them who Sarah Carter was, they don't know. You ask them who Mary Selman Jackson was, they don't know. And it's not their fault. It is because we have a system that is not inclusive, that do not include everyone. And we hope that in the future, the curriculum at Anne Arundel County Public Schools will reflect all people who made contributions. And in this county, it's a rich county with a rich history as it relates to people of color. We're going to be honoring 22 men and women tonight. Men and women who've made their own niche in our community, who've made a difference. Some of them have served at the federal level, some of them have served at the local level. All of them have made a significant contribution to our county. I have the great pleasure now of introducing one of our honorees, whose one of his talents is the ability to sing. Please join me in welcome to the podium, Anthony J. Spencer, better known to us as Tony. Yes, sir.
You know the change is here, but I want you to share that with me tonight. I was born by the river in a little tent. And just like that river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know the change is gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. It's been real hard living, but I'm not afraid to die. Why? I still trust in something beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. Remember this? I go to the movie and I go downtown. Somebody kept telling me, boy, don't you come around. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. Then I go to my brother and I say, oh, my brother, will you help me please? But he winds up cutting me. Oh, there goes all my needs tomorrow. There were times when I thought I couldn't last for long. Now I know I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know, yes, I know, the change is gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. You don't believe? I know the change is gonna come. Yes, it will. Yes, it will. Whoa, yes, it
Tony Spencer. Give it up. One more time for Tony Spencer. The county executive, when he comes to make his remarks, will be introducing elected officials. But I want to take a moment to acknowledge some non-elected officials who have made contributions in our community, and we want to acknowledge them. We have with us the president of the Anne Arundel County NAACP, Jackie Alsop. Jackie, would you stand and be acknowledged? We have the president of our Anne Arundel Community College, Dr. Dawn Lindsay. Would you please stand and be acknowledged? Dr. Gomez is going to be on a panel with us. Dr. Gomez, would you stand and be acknowledged? And we want to acknowledge two of our finest finest law enforcement officials. Our Annapolis Police Chief, Ed Jackson, is with us tonight. And Chief Jackson, you old Chief Altamar, and great favor. He did you a great job today in the favor. He said, you okay. Chief Altamar. Let us take this moment to acknowledge all of the law enforcement officials. Wherever you are, law enforcement officials, please stand. Let's acknowledge our police officers. Let us take a moment to acknowledge our educators. All educators, please stand. Let's give our educators a round of applause. All educators, let's give them a round of applause. We cannot go any further without acknowledging our elders. It's our elders that make the difference. Would you please stand, not the elders, but everybody who's non-elders, stand. Stand. Non-elders, please stand and let's give our elders a round of applause. Elders, 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 elders. And we want to, of course, acknowledge clergy. Give the clergy a round of applause, including our Muslim brother, the imam that's here. Let's acknowledge the clergy, all the clergy that's here. America, what does it stand for? What makes America different than any other place on the face of the earth? It's this great experiment. It's more than 200 years old, and it's an experiment that's ongoing. The truth of the matter is there's no nation as much as diverse as America. It's an experiment. It's an experiment that unfolds every single day. Americans are at a crossroads now. They have to decide what will be the future of America. Where do we want to go as a nation? Do we want to be this inclusive nation that welcomes everyone in? Do we want to be a nation that allows people to practice freely their religion? Do we want to be a nation that acknowledges people and their human worth? It's a vision. There are many people who've had that vision over this nation's history. The founding fathers, when they wrote that document, the Declaration of Independence, it was Jefferson who said, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their creators." It was a vision of a new nation, a nation that looked at humanity as a whole. It was leaders all over America and throughout American history who challenged the proposition that America could be better. 2 years ago, we had an opportunity to elect a leader with a vision. When he came to public office, he had never held public office before. He had never held an elective office. He looked at his county that he grew up in. We both share one common denominator. He lived and grew up in a place called Davidsonville, Maryland, as did I. We're but 5 years apart in age, but we both lived through an era and an experience here in Anne Arundel County. When he ran for elective office, there were many who thought he couldn't win. But as he went from community to community, talking to people, he developed a slogan. You see it now on every single sign as you come into Anne Arundel County. In the past, signs have always welcomed people based on who the county executive was. It was a big thing to see your name if you were a county executive as you entered into a county. He decided to change the theme. He created a theme that says, the best place for all. Please welcome to the podium, County Executive Stuart Pittman.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you, Tony Spencer. As I was getting ready to come over here this evening, I said to a couple people in the office that what I was looking forward most to was hearing Tony Spencer sing, because I hadn't heard him sing before. But I had seen his art. And if you go down into the Arundel Center right now, you will see all the walls filled with Tony Spencer's paintings. And is it Tuesday evening?
Tuesday, 11th of February, 4:30 to 6.
Next Tuesday, 4:30 to 6. We're having a reception. You can come and see his art as well, and we'll have wine and cheese and all those things, and we'll hear his interpretations. But Chris Trumbauer in our office told me he sings better than he paints. Anyway, thank you. That was a great way to start this evening. And thank you, Carl, for putting this together. It is our event, the county's event, but I can't say it was my idea. Like a lot of the good things that are happening in this county, it was Carl Snowden's idea. And I know a good idea when I see it. So. And I also want to thank Dee Goodwin, who helped to put this together. There's Dee, always working on the best projects. And I want to thank folks on my staff who worked on this. We had James Kitchen, head of Community Engagement Constituent Services, helping out. Jen Purcell, our Chief of Staff. Christy Alvarez, Jenny Probstel, who does our social media. Roz Hamlet does communications. Is Roz here? I thought, are you here, Roz? Roz! All right. Spent most of the day with her. But we have two interns, Colin Jackson and Jordan Habib. Heidi May, who prepared all the citations. From Rec and Parks, put this together, really. Colleen Joseph, and also their photographer, Andre Glenn. And we have Arundel TV here helping the video, I think. Yeah, there they are. And you heard we have our police chief here and also our deputy chief Flemings. And we have our, we have our director of transportation, Ramon Robinson. I didn't know he was coming. He came just because he wanted to be here. And Kay Bodgester Brown, our deputy CAO, deputy chief administrative officer for Health and Human Services. Kay, there's Kay. Come on. All right. Enough of that. And then, of course, we have elected officials. We have from our county council, in the front row, 3 of the 5 women that control our council, our supermajority. We have Sarah Lacey, Jessica Hare, and Lisa Rodvian. All 3 of you. And from Congressman Anthony Brown's office, we had Adam Spangler. And our judge, Elizabeth Morris, was here and I think had to leave. And Mike Rogers, Delegate Mike Rogers, was here. Oh, are you still here, Mike? All right. I was going to give you a hard time that he was here, took his selfies, and left to go take selfies somewhere else. Okay. And former Annapolis Alderman Kenny Kirby. So, thank you all for being here. And Roz is here. Thank you, Roz. All right. And we'll get to the most important people here at the end. There's 2 phones here. I got to figure out which is mine. I have to read something that may be difficult for me to read because it's why we're here. And I wanted to talk about why we were here. So it's Black History Month. And I had just heard in our staff meeting with all our public safety agencies about a trip that our new police recruits took to the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. And I heard that they spent 10 hours there and that it was a program that they do and that it was a very moving experience. And on Sunday, I had a little free time for a change and convinced my twin 10-year-old boys and my wife that we ought to go into D.C. and do something. Of course, the kids wanted to go to the Air and Space Museum, and I knew where I wanted to go, and we had to trick them. We said, we'll go to this museum for an hour, and then we'll go over to the, look at the airplanes and stuff. And so we went to the museum, National Museum of African American History and Culture. I have to go back and spend more time. But my kids listened. But there was a few quotes up on the walls, and I'm going to read one. Oops, that's the wrong one. That's the Declaration of Independence. That's got something in there too that's relevant, but damn, how come I can't make this thing work? All right, it's James Baldwin. And why? Oh, it's trying to get me to edit the photo. I'm not real good at this stuff, but here we go. Here he is. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. The great force of history comes from the fact that we carry it within us, and unconsciously and are unconsciously controlled by it. History is literally present in all that we do. And I think that's why we're doing this event, and we're doing it the way that we're doing it. History is in everything we do, and in America, African American history is in everything that we do. And in this county, African American history is in everything that we do, because this county and this country were built on the backs of African American people who did most of the work in the founding of this country. So the question at a time like this, or really any time, I think, is what are we doing to make history? And are we bending that arc of history, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s arc of history toward justice, or not? And we're not here to talk about all the great things that I've done in the last year or that you've done at the county level. We're really here to talk about the things that you've done in communities, and all of the honorees are that story. But I want to mention a few things that have been going on in the county, because so many of you have made it happen. We did change the county slogan. We changed the county slogan when we were first on the Maryland State Police's list of the most hate bias incidents reported. And that was a wake-up call. That was a call to action. And we had made the county slogan, when I got elected, the best place. And the Pledge of Allegiance actually ends with the words "for all." It says liberty and justice for all. That's the promise. It's the promise of the flag and the country, and not always kept. So we added the words "for all," and I think it's 30-something signs coming into the county, and every one of them now says the best place, but then on the next line it says that afterthought. It's the best place for all, or at least that's our aspiration. That's where we have to get. And we've done some things to make that possible. You all passed, or I should say you all passed, a fair housing bill in the county that bans discrimination on not only race and ethnicity, but on source of income. And hopefully the state's going to be doing the same thing. We created a Human Relations Commission that is in the county code now, and has the power to subpoena and adjudicate around these issues of fair housing. We've organized an event that I hope everybody here will be at on February 26th, or I should say our new Human Relations Commission, at its very first meeting, organized this event. February 26th, 6 o'clock, at the Community College, in the Kaufman Theater, with the Department of Justice, state officials, local officials, to talk about hate crimes and hate bias incidents. What the law says, what we're trying to do to change the laws, and what we can do in our communities to change the way people act. We have an opportunity gap. We called it the achievement gap to close the achievement gap, but we're now calling it the opportunity gap between the school system and county government. And that was something that some of you emailed me about early on and said, what are you going to do about this? There was a promise. There was a contract between the NAACP and the Anne Arundel County School System that said we were going to close the achievement gap, and nothing happened. And now it's the anniversary of that, and what are we going to do about it? I'm not making any promises, but I do know that for the first time, it's all of county government and all of the school system and all of the community getting behind that. And they're having a meeting tomorrow evening. I believe it's at Broadneck High. Yeah, 6 o'clock. For an update on the status of that and another opportunity to have input into that. And of course, we're funding our schools, investing in them, because I believe that's the only real solution to intergenerational poverty, to changing the way people think. We've got to work on the next generation, and we do that through our schools. We're creating the Office of Health Equity and Racial Justice in the Health Department, and we're putting that into our budget for next year to staff that organization and use the tools that the academics have and the researchers have and the health department has to look at equity and racial justice and look at all policy through that lens. And we're trying as hard as we can, probably should be trying harder, to open up Anne Arundel County government to African American, all minorities, to make the government look like the county, look more like the county. And not just in public works, not just in the jobs that have traditionally been held by African Americans, but all the way to the top, in every department, in the departments where they have been historically white, historically male, the fire department, police department, law, my office, the Office of County Executive. And we're doing better. We're doing better than we've ever done. The numbers are showing that. They're not where they need to be. But it's not just hiring people. It's not even just promoting people. We created an interagency diversity council that has representation from every county department that comes together and creates a safe place for people to talk about challenges and obstacles in their workplaces. And I learned a new term. We have a new personnel director, Sherry Dickerson, African-American woman that we hired and stole from Atlanta, Georgia. And she's been very helpful in our office as we struggle with diversity and inclusion. And she told me that what we need to do is to master inclusion. And it's hard work. And we're working on it. So that's what your county government is doing. We want to do more. I want to do more. We have to do more. I hope that the citizens of this county want to do more. And if they don't, we'll teach them history and they'll understand why we have to do more. So. But what's more important than what the county government does, or at least as important, is what people are doing in their neighborhoods, in their churches, in their schools, in their organizations, every institution of this county. And I think the reason why you have this program is because there are a lot of people in here with a lot of stories to tell. And the stories are written down. And I read through them all, and I went in there with my marker and marked them all, in case I had to give a speech about everybody. But if I did give a speech about everybody, Carl would be pulling me out of here, and you'd never get home. So please read it. because the stories are impressive. And this is just, like we say, this is just a few of the many. We can do this every single year with just as many and still hardly scratch the surface of the people who are doing the great work in this county to make Anne Arundel County the best place for all. So it's a great honor to be hosting this event, and thank you, Carl. Let's get to it. Let's get these awards going.